Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a huge financial mystery. There's a market that's so big it props up the entire global economy, but for some reason, it's critically short on talent. To really get a handle on this, you first have to understand the sheer scale we're talking about.
So let's start with the number at the center of it all, $632 trillion. Yep, that's trillion with a T. That's the estimated value of the global over-the-counter derivatives market. I mean, to put that in perspective, it's more than 7 times the GDP of the entire planet. This isn't some tiny forgotten corner of finance. It's a bedrock of the whole system.
And that, right there, is the big question. It's a total paradox. How can a market this enormous, this critical, be struggling so badly to find people who know what they're doing? It's a problem that has major banks and hedge funds scrambling, and it's exactly what we're going to unpack in this explainer.
Okay, so to solve this mystery, we've got to act like detectives. First things first, we need to look at the evidence. How do we even know for sure that this skills gap is a real thing and not just, hype?
Well, the data paints a pretty stark picture. According to industry research, something like 2/3 of firms say they struggle to fill derivatives roles. And these aren't quick hires. These jobs stay open for over 4 months on average. So when a firm finally finds someone, they're shelling out an extra 18 to 25% salary premium. And even then, after all that, the new person often needs more than 6 months of intense internal training, these so-called derivatives boot camps, just to get up to speed. It's a huge drain on time and money.
So if the demand is that high and the pay is that good, what gives? Why aren't our universities and established finance programs pumping out qualified people? It's time to round up the usual suspects and see where they're falling short.
The root of the problem really boils down to this one idea, the theory-practice disconnect. Look, it's one thing to be able to write down the Black-Scholes formula for an option price on an exam. It's a completely different ballgame to know how to use it to manage a real portfolio when the market's going crazy and you can't get your trades filled easily. That gap between knowing the textbook and knowing what to do is the real culprit here.
So let's bring in our first suspect, the Chartered Financial Analyst, or CFA program. I mean, this is the gold standard for investment professionals all over the world. It's tough, it's widely respected. You'd think this would be the answer. But is it the right tool for this specific job?
The issue for the CFA program is really about focus. It's designed to create fantastic, well-rounded generalists, but derivatives, they make up only about 7% of the entire massive curriculum. That's a great foundation for sure, but it just doesn't go deep enough into the nitty-gritty practical skills that employers are crying out for. Okay, on to suspect number 2, the Financial Risk Manager, or FRM certification. Now this one sounds more promising, right? It's way more specialized than risk, and it definitely has a lot more derivatives content than the CFA. So maybe this is the solution? Well, the FRM is more specialized, but it's specialized in a very specific way. It is excellent, truly excellent, at teaching you how to measure and contain risk. Think value at risk, hedging, regulations. It's all about defense. But the market also needs people who can play offense, people who use derivatives to generate returns, structure clever trades, and optimize a portfolio's performance. That's a skill set that's mostly outside the FRM's main focus.
And you don't have to take my word for it. This quote from the source paper we're drawing from really just hits the nail on the head. Julian Rothbard writes that all major programs exhibit substantial emphasis on theoretical foundations with limited attention to practical implementation considerations. In other words, they all teach you the what, but they don't teach you the how.
Now, you know what they say, the market abhors a vacuum. This huge, obvious gap created a massive opportunity. As the problem got worse, a totally new kind of solution started to take shape, one built from the ground up to fix this exact problem. It was time for the specialists to enter the scene.
You can actually see this move toward specialization play out perfectly on a timeline. You had the generalist CFA program created way back in 1963. Then, decades later, in 1997, the FRM showed up as a dedicated risk specialist. And then, just very recently in 2021, the Certified Futures and Options Analyst, or CFOA, was launched, with the very specific goal of being a derivatives application specialist.
So what makes this new specialist approach any different? I mean, what are they actually doing? Well, it all comes down to a pretty fundamental shift in the whole philosophy of how you learn this stuff.
You can really break it down into two competing ideas. The traditional approach is all theory-based. It's broad, and it tests your ability to just recall formulas and definitions. The new specialist way, like with the CFOA, is all about application. It's super focused, it's deep, and it puts you right into a realistic market situation and asks the only question that really matters on the job. Okay, what do you do now?
So, what does one of these scenarios actually look like? Okay, picture this. You're a portfolio manager. One of your biggest holdings is about to report earnings, and you can see that options prices are jacked up because of volatility. The CFOA approach doesn't ask you for a textbook definition. No, it forces you to analyze the real-world situation, to weigh different strategies, thinking about practical things like trading costs and market liquidity, and then you have to actually justify your final decision. It's built to feel just like the real job.
So the billion-dollar question, or I guess the $632 trillion question, is does this new approach actually work? Is this specialist model the real solution to our mystery? For that, we have to look at the early signs from the market itself.
The early data on who's actually signing up for this thing is pretty telling. It's not just kids fresh out of college. Nope. The biggest chunk, 40%, are mid-career pros trying to switch roles or level up. And get this, a full quarter of the candidates are already experienced practitioners. That's a huge signal that the program is filling a gap that people working in the industry right now are actually feeling.
And what about the companies hiring them? The earliest adopters seem to be smaller, more nimble firms. You've got boutique hedge funds and prop trading shops that love the practical, ready-to-go curriculum because they just don't have the resources for those huge 6-month boot camps like the big banks do. They need people who can walk in the door and add value on day one. So, what's our final verdict here? Well, based on everything we've seen, it seems pretty clear that specialized credentials like the CFOA are a really meaningful and logical answer to this skills gap. They attack that theory-practice disconnect head-on. But it's also important to remember there's the new kid on the block. Their long-term impact on the industry, that's a story that's still being written.
And that kind of leaves us with one last, much bigger question to chew on. The derivatives market is just one example of a trend happening everywhere. Our world is just getting more and more complex. So as you think about your own career, your own skills, it's probably worth asking yourself, is the future of work going to belong to the generalist or to the specialist?